The Duttons are at war, and the battle for Yellowstone has reached a deadly new level. Friends have become enemies, alliances are shattered, and blood stains the Montana plains. But the biggest question remains, where is Spencer Dutton? Will he return in time to save his family, or has he been lost to the chaos forever? As Jacob Dutton fights to hold his land, betrayal lurks in the shadows, threatening to destroy the very legacy he swore to protect. The war for Yellowstone has begun, and no one is safe. The tension at the Yellowstone ranch has never been this high. Jacob Dutton, battered but unbroken, stands at the center of a storm that threatens to rip everything apart. After months of struggling against Donald Whitfield and Banner Creighton's relentless attacks, the Duttons now face a more insidious threat: betrayal from within. Someone close to the family has turned against them, feeding their enemies information, exposing their weaknesses, and making it nearly impossible for Jacob to stay ahead. Rumors swirl through Montana like wildfire. Townsfolk whisper about a deal struck in the dark, a secret betrayal that has put the Duttons on the path to ruin. The land that Jacob and Kara fought so hard to hold is under siege, not just from greedy men like Whitfield, but from someone they once trusted with their lives. Could it be someone within the ranch? A ranch hand bought off by Whitfield's money? Or worse, could a member of the Dutton family itself have betrayed them? As Jacob tries to secure what little control he has left, Kara Dutton becomes the family's backbone, determined to keep the household together as chaos unfolds. But deep down, she fears they are losing this fight. The ranch is bleeding resources. Their cattle numbers are dwindling, and the law, once an ally, now seems to turn a blind eye to the corruption gripping the land. And then, the worst blow comes: a coordinated attack. Under the cover of night, gunshots ring out across Yellowstone. A group of masked riders storm the ranch, setting fire to barns, cutting fences, and striking fear into everyone on the land. The attack is brutal and swift, leaving several ranch hands dead and the Duttons barely holding on. Jacob, despite his age, fights like a man with nothing left to lose, taking down his enemies one by one. But he knows this isn't a random raid. This was planned. Someone on the inside helped make this happen. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Spencer Dutton fights a battle of his own. After barely surviving the horrors of war and the tragedies of Africa, he now faces the cruel reality that getting back to Montana is not as simple as he once thought. Government orders, travel restrictions, and even those who seek to keep him away from his family stand in his way. But does Spencer even know what's happening back home? If he knew his family was under attack, there would be nothing that could stop him from returning. The question is, will he find out in time? As dawn breaks over the ranch, Jacob surveys the destruction left behind. The land is wounded, but so is he. The betrayal is like a dagger to his heart, and now, more than ever, he realizes one truth. If the Duttons want to survive, they can no longer just defend. They have to strike back. The morning after the attack, Yellowstone Ranch stands as a battlefield. Smoke still rises from the charred remains of the barn. The bodies of fallen ranch hands lie covered in dust, and the once proud land looks like it has been through hell. But for Jacob Dutton, there is no time to mourn. Every second wasted is another opportunity for Whitfield and his men to tighten their grip. As he gathers the survivors, he realizes that trust is now a fragile thing. Someone betrayed them, and until he finds out who, no one is above suspicion. The weight of leadership has never felt heavier, and for the first time in his long, war-hardened life, Jacob begins to wonder if he is fighting a losing battle. Kara, standing beside him with eyes filled with quiet determination, reminds him that the Duttons have never been ones to surrender. If they are going to fall, they will take their enemies down with them. But Whitfield is not finished. The ruthless tycoon moves like a man who already considers himself the owner of Yellowstone. He tightens his control over the region, using his wealth and influence to sway the courts, lawmen, and even some of the townspeople who fear his wrath more than they respect Jacob Dutton. Whitfield knows the Duttons are weakened, and like a predator, he circles, waiting for the perfect moment to strike the final blow. His biggest weapon is not his money or his hired guns, it's information. And thanks to the traitor inside the ranch, he knows exactly how to hurt the Duttons where it will break them the most. He orders Banner Creighton to make his next move, ensuring that when the Duttons finally collapse, there will be no chance of them rising again. Meanwhile, far from Montana, Spencer Dutton's journey home remains fraught with obstacles. Stranded in a foreign land, he is plagued by guilt and frustration. He can feel something is wrong, an uneasy weight pressing on his chest, a deep-rooted instinct screaming at him that his family is in danger. But Spencer is no longer the man who once roamed the world searching for meaning. He has fought lions, faced death, and survived the kind of horrors that change a man forever. And if his family needs him, there is no force on earth that will keep him from returning. However, what he doesn't know is that there are those working to ensure he never makes it back. Whitfield has long feared Spencer's return. The war veteran is the only one capable of turning the tide, of giving Jacob the strength and reinforcements he desperately needs. So Whitfield uses his reach, pulling strings in places Spencer can't even see. Bureaucratic roadblocks, missing travel papers, and even the threat of imprisonment suddenly stand in Spencer's way. It's as if an invisible hand is pushing him further from Montana, ensuring he arrives too late. Back at the ranch, the betrayal within the Dutton family continues to fester. Tensions between family members grow as paranoia seeps into their bones. Is it one of the ranch hands who has been feeding Whitfield information? Or could it be someone closer? Could a desperate family member, tired of fighting, have made a deal to survive? Every glance, every word spoken feels laced with hidden meaning, and the divide between them grows deeper. Jack Dutton, once a hot-headed but loyal protector of the family, starts to spiral into rage. His father's legacy is under attack, and the weight of defending it is driving him toward dangerous decisions. He is ready to take the fight directly to Whitfield, to spill blood in the name of Yellowstone. But Jacob knows better. Whitfield is counting on them to act rashly, to make a move that will give him the legal right to take everything. One wrong step, and the battle is lost before it even begins. Then comes another blow, an ultimatum. Whitfield sends a message to Jacob, delivered by a lawyer dressed in fine suits and smug arrogance. The message is simple: surrender Yellowstone, leave quietly, and perhaps, just perhaps, the Duttons will be spared further suffering. It's not a deal, it's a demand, a thinly veiled threat wrapped in legal language. Jacob listens, his expression unreadable, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He does not respond immediately, does not give Whitfield the satisfaction of an answer. But in his heart, he already knows what must be done. There is no surrender. There is no negotiation. There is only war. But war requires warriors. And as Jacob prepares for the greatest fight of his life, he knows one thing above all. He needs Spencer. He needs his brother's strength, his strategic mind, and the fire that once burned in the heart of a soldier. Will Spencer make it back in time, or will Jacob be forced to fight this war alone? The storm of war builds over Yellowstone, but it is not just the land that shakes. It is the very foundation of the Dutton family itself. Jacob knows the time for waiting is over. If they do not act now, Whitfield's noose will tighten, and soon they will have nothing left to fight for. Yet the battle before them is unlike any Jacob has ever faced. This is not the frontier of old, where disputes were settled by grit and gunfire alone. Whitfield is a new breed of enemy, one who fights with money, power, and the corrupt hands of the law. Every move Jacob makes must be calculated. Every decision must serve a purpose, because one wrong step could mean the end of Yellowstone forever. But something is wrong inside the ranch. A shadow lingers over the family, creeping into their minds like a sickness. The betrayal that struck them in the night remains unresolved. Someone close to them, a person they trusted, opened the gates for their enemies. And until they find out who, no one is safe. The accusations begin to fly, tensions reaching a boiling point as paranoia seeps into every conversation. Jack Dutton, still seething from the attack, demands answers. He storms through the ranch like a wildfire, challenging men who have fought beside him for years. His anger blinds him, making him see enemies where there may be none. His wife, Elizabeth, tries to calm him, but even she feels the uncertainty gnawing at her. The attack was too precise, too well timed. Someone had to have known their weakest point. Someone had to have told Whitfield when to strike. And then there is Kara. The Dutton matriarch has seen enough betrayal in her life to know that trust, once broken, can never be fully restored. But she also knows the importance of keeping the family together. If they start turning on each other, they will be fighting two wars. one against Whitfield and another against themselves. She urges Jacob to act carefully, to uncover the truth before they start tearing each other apart. But Jacob is not a man who deals in patience. He needs answers, and he needs them now. He begins his own investigation, looking into every ranch hand, every deal made in the past few months. And what he finds shakes him to his core. The betrayal did not come from an outsider. It came from someone inside the family. A name whispered in the dark, a secret uncovered that changes everything. But before Jacob can confront the traitor, another disaster strikes. Whitfield, sensing that his enemies are growing desperate, makes his next move. His men, armed, ruthless, and without mercy, descend upon the ranch in broad daylight. This is no longer a game of legal trickery. This is war. The attack is swift and brutal. Gunfire erupts across the land, sending men scrambling for cover. The ranch hands fight back with everything they have, but Whitfield's men are prepared. Their assault organized and relentless. The ranch that has stood as the Duttons' home for generations is now a battlefield. Jack, still burning with rage, charges into the fight, his rifle in hand, his mind clouded with fury. He has never known fear, never backed down from a fight. But this is different. This is war on a scale he has never seen. And then, in the chaos, it happens. A single shot, a moment frozen in time. A bullet rips through the air, finding its mark. Jack stumbles, his body going cold as pain sears through him. He falls to the ground, gasping for breath as the world around him fades. Elizabeth's scream cuts through the gunfire. She rushes to his side, her hands trembling as she presses against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. But the battle rages on. Jacob, seeing his nephew fall, is consumed by fury. He charges forward, his revolver roaring as he cuts down Whitfield's men one by one. The attack was meant to break them, to send a message, but all it has done is awaken the monster inside Jacob Dutton. Amid the chaos, Kara makes a desperate decision. She knows that if they do not get Jack to a doctor soon, he will die. But there is no safe place left. The town is controlled by Whitfield, and the law will not help them. Their only hope is to flee, to disappear into the wild until they can regroup. But leaving Yellowstone, even for a moment, feels like surrender. And Jacob Dutton does not surrender. Then, as if fate itself has intervened, a familiar sound echoes in the distance. Horses galloping, the thunder of hooves against the earth. And then, out of the dust and chaos, he appears. Spencer Dutton. He is a man who has faced death and walked away. A man hardened by war, by loss, by the pain of a world that never stops taking. And now, he is home. But he does not return as the man who left. Spencer has been reforged in fire, his body and soul hardened by the battles he has fought across the world. And he has returned for one reason, to save his family. The sight of him is enough to turn the tide of battle. The ranch hands, seeing their lost son return, fight harder, their spirits reignited. Jacob, despite the blood and loss around him, feels a spark of hope. But Spencer does not waste time on reunions. He assesses the battlefield with the cold calculation of a soldier. He sees the weak points, the mistakes being made, the way Whitfield's men fight with precision and organization. And he does what he does best. He takes control. With Spencer leading the charge, the Duttons fight back with newfound strength. Whitfield's men, once so confident in their victory, begin to falter. The ranch hands push forward, forcing the enemy back, reclaiming their land inch by inch. But the battle is not over. Whitfield himself is not present, and that means only one thing. He has something even worse planned. As the dust settles and the remaining enemies retreat, the Duttons gather what is left. The bodies of their fallen men lay across the ranch, the cost of war etched into the very soil. Jack, though still alive, remains in critical condition, his fate uncertain. And then there is Spencer, standing before his family, a man forever changed by the horrors he has seen. But there is no time for reunions, no time for peace. The war for Yellowstone has only just begun. And with Spencer back in the fight, Whitfield is about to learn the true meaning of vengeance. The battlefield may be quiet, but the war for Yellowstone is far from over. The Duttons have survived Whitfield's ruthless attack, but at what cost? The land is stained with blood, their family torn between grief and fury. Jack's life hangs in the balance, his breathing shallow as Elizabeth refuses to leave his side. She whispers desperate prayers, her hands trembling as she clutches his. The young Dutton, once so full of fire, now lies at the edge of death. But the fight cannot stop. Jacob knows that hesitation now would be fatal. The Duttons have drawn blood, but so has Whitfield. And a man like Whitfield does not lose. He only regroups, plans, and strikes again with even greater force. And then there is Spencer. The long-lost Dutton son stands before his family, battle-hardened and weary, but more dangerous than ever. He does not return as the reckless young man who left for Africa. He is a warrior now, forged in the fires of survival. But Spencer does not bring words of comfort or reunion. He brings strategy. He knows the war they are fighting is not just one of guns and bullets. Whitfield is playing a different game, one that is as much about legal manipulation as brute force. The land may be the battlefield, but the true war is for power itself. And Spencer, having fought enemies across the world, knows how to dismantle an empire. Yet, the family's wounds run deeper than the ones inflicted by bullets. The traitor among them remains a ghost, their presence poisoning the air. Jacob cannot move forward until he uncovers the truth. Who betrayed them? Who sold their family out to Whitfield? The search intensifies. Suspicion lingers in every conversation. Could it be one of their own? Could someone so close to them be the reason Jack now fights for his life? The tension crackles through the ranch like wildfire. Trust is shattered, and paranoia is their new reality. But then, a revelation strikes like lightning. A letter, hidden away, its ink still fresh. The words within it send a shockwave through the family, confirming their worst fears. The betrayal was not just an accident, it was deliberate. Someone close to them had been feeding information to Whitfield for months, setting up the attack, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But why? What could drive a person to turn against the family they swore to protect? The answer is even more devastating than they imagined. Money, power. A false promise that Whitfield dangled before them like bait. And now, as Jacob reads the letter, rage fills his chest like fire. He has fought enemies before, men who came with guns and threats. But betrayal from within, that is a wound that cuts deeper than any blade. Spencer, watching his uncle's fury, knows what must be done. There is no place for traitors in this war. Justice must be swift, absolute. But before they can act, Whitfield strikes again. Not with guns this time, but with something even more dangerous. The law. A rider arrives at Yellowstone carrying a summons. Whitfield has used his wealth to bend the system to his will. He is taking the Duttons to court, claiming ownership over the land itself. The legal battle that Jacob feared has begun. This is a different kind of war. Bullets may have drawn blood, but this fight will determine who truly owns Yellowstone. And Spencer, fresh from the horrors of distant battlefields, realizes the true cost of this war. If they lose, it is not just the land at stake. It is their entire legacy. Everything their family has fought for will be erased. Yet, as the Duttons prepare for the next phase of their battle, another question remains unanswered. Is Whitfield truly their only enemy, or are there others lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike when they least expect it? Because the war for Yellowstone is not over. It has only just begun. The fight for Yellowstone has reached a boiling point, and now there is no turning back. Jacob Dutton stands at the helm of a family battered by bloodshed, betrayal, and the relentless assault of Donald Whitfield. But what truly makes a man dangerous is not just his wealth or power. It is his ability to control the rules of the game. And Whitfield is changing the game once again. As Jacob prepares to retaliate, the news of the court summons spreads like wildfire. Whitfield isn't just trying to kill the Duttons. He is trying to erase them from history. If he wins in court, Yellowstone will be stripped from their hands legally without another shot fired. The ranch that generations of Duttons bled for will no longer belong to them. It will be sold, broken, and reshaped into a kingdom under Whitfield's rule. But the Duttons are not a family that bends to tyranny. Spencer steps forward, his gaze cold, his mind sharper than ever. The war is not just physical, it's political, financial, and legal. If they fight with only their fists, they will lose. But if they play Whitfield's game against him, they may have a chance. And so, for the first time, the Duttons must enter an unfamiliar battlefield, the courtroom. But as the legal battle begins to take shape, the ranch itself remains a war zone. The land is still crawling with Whitfield's men, outlaws paid to make life unbearable. The Duttons have held the line so far, but they are exhausted. Their numbers are dwindling, and their enemies are closing in. Jacob knows they cannot hold out forever. Reinforcements are needed, but who will come to their aid? Just as hope seems to fade, a familiar face rides through the gates of Yellowstone. A man long thought to be an enemy. Banner Creighton, the Scottish sheepherder, once at odds with Jacob, now sees the true enemy for what he is. Whitfield promised him power, but only delivered destruction. And now, Banner returns not as an adversary, but as an ally, if only for his own survival. Enemies of the past must unite if they have any hope of defeating the greater evil that threatens them all. But the true war is yet to come. Whitfield is not a man who accepts failure, and as he learns of Spencer's return and Banner's betrayal, he decides to strike the final blow. He no longer wants to just take Yellowstone, he wants to wipe the Duttons off the face of the earth. He orders a new attack, more vicious than before, one that will leave no survivors. As the sun sets over the Montana plains, the Duttons brace for what may be their final stand. The air is thick with tension, the horses restless, the guns loaded. This is not just about land anymore. It is about family, about legacy, about survival itself. And then, the first gunshot rings out. A storm of violence erupts as Whitfield's men descend upon the ranch like a pack of wolves. The battle is brutal, unrelenting. Jacob fights with the fury of a man who refuses to let his legacy die. Spencer, the warrior hardened by war, moves like a ghost through the chaos, his rifle striking down enemies with deadly precision. Even Elizabeth, once fearful and delicate, now stands her ground, protecting Jack with unwavering resolve. But then, disaster. A fire spreads across the barn. The cattle, the heart of Yellowstone, are driven into a deadly stampede. The land itself seems to cry out in agony. And in the chaos, a single gunshot changes everything. The dust settles, the smoke clears, and as the survivors gather, the unthinkable is revealed. A member of the family, one who fought so hard to protect Yellowstone, now lies lifeless in the dirt. Their sacrifice is the cost of this war, a painful reminder that no victory comes without loss. But this is not the end. The war is still raging, and Whitfield's grip is tightening. The question remains, will the Duttons endure, or will Yellowstone finally fall into the hands of the man who will stop at nothing to destroy them? And as the night swallows the ranch, one final question lingers in the cold Montana air. Can Spencer Dutton truly save his family, or has he returned only to witness its downfall? Share your thoughts in the comment section and subscribe our channel for more videos. Thank you.